how do you interact with people who voted for this? Right? If you are an LGBTQ person and someone in your family voted essentially against your rights, or you're a woman, knowing that, this man was calling people the B word. J.D. Vance was literally calling Kamala Harris the trash and said, we're going to take out the trash. I know a lot of Black women were incredibly triggered by that. And if you then meet somebody and they voted for the people who called you trash, or if you're Puerto Rican, and someone voted that way, do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood, and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me. And I actually talk to, adults as well as advising parents for children. I mean, I think, I don't think that you should force children. I don't think you should force adults to be around people just because they're your family. I think there's a level of, need to establish boundaries. And if you feel like you need to establish boundaries with people, whether they're your family or not, I think you should very much be entitled to do so. And I think it may be essential for your mental health.
Hey, everybody. It's Rich coming to you here with Leaving MAGA with the MeidasTouch Network. As I had mentioned in a recent promo video we did, we are still doing our videos for those to highlight those who left MAGA, but we are also adding to that a series of videos of friends and family who left MAGA. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our updates coming up. I just want to thank everybody, as always, for all the engagement, all the comments with all the videos we've been doing with Leaving MAGA. So I want to just mention how I met our guest today. Her name is Seivert. She's in Pennsylvania. I had put out on my socials that I wanted to speak with friends and family of those who have, or of those who are in MAGA. And I did expect to get a response, but it has been completely overwhelming and humbling just how many people have actually reached out to us. So I want to bring Megan in. I want to thank her for joining us today. Hi, Megan. Appreciate you being here. And let me just preface by saying I know that these conversations are really difficult, and I thank you. And on behalf of all of us here at Leaving MAGA and MeidasTouch, we really appreciate that you are doing what I see as an invaluable public service and a very selfless act. So when I put my message out there on socials, you reached out to me, and we had a chance to converse, and you had said in that message to me that I want you to get into here in a moment, that you, and I don't want to put this word in your mouth, but you desperately, or close to maybe, wanted to find a way of reconciling with some of your family who are in MAGA. And talk to us about some of the relatives and what were the relationships like before Trump and MAGA? Did you talk a lot about politics? What was that dynamic like before the interjection of all this politics in your relationships?
Yeah. So I think we didn't really talk about politics specifically. I think at some point growing up, I realized that, my dad's side of the family, my parents are divorced, but like my dad's side of the family, votes Republican, and they just, that's what they do. And by the time 2016 came around, I was a young adult and had, started paying attention to politics, but my family never really pushed political things on me. We were a big military family. We moved around all over the place. And as much as, we had that love of the military and, love of our country kind of thing going on, bit of pride there. None of it was ever like politics related. Like it was never about the actual politicians and the political side of things. It was like serving your country and that part of it. But as a young adult, I started paying attention a little more. And then in 2016, of course, with Trump kind of shaking things up in a way and being a very different candidate than normal, I was instantly turned off by his whole deal. I wasn't a huge fan of Hillary, but I like Bernie. But I saw Trump for what he was, and I wasn't a fan of that. And um, I think I talked about it to my family at that point because I was so. It was a big, it was the topic of the year or whatever. It was a huge thing to talk about, and they seemed to kind of downplay some of the things he did. And I was like, "What are you talking about? That's weird. Why would you want that in the White House?" And they voted for him, and it was a strain on things. And I think it was it started to strain things from there. And I think COVID was a huge issue as well. The something about the radicalization went way stronger than it had before during COVID. I think a lot of people got stir crazy or something. But politics became less of a more talked about because I thought it was important to share with them my feelings about it.
So thank you. So did you feel like in that time period, so 2016 to 2020, right? So the first term,
Mm-hmm.
were there these observable changes that you saw with some of your family members, and maybe it was how they spoke, maybe it was some of their social media. I'm wondering when you started to maybe become a little bit concerned with, this doesn't really sound like the person I have known pretty much my entire life, right? And you start to see
Yeah.
those changes, because I've talked a lot about this in my own Leaving MAGA personal story, that while I'm not defending my actions because I spoke and acted on my own volition, my decisions,
Mm.
I do feel like a lot of these mythologies in MAGA really actually do change people. Like something happens when they start to adhere to them that I feel like it changes a little bit of a person's outlook and how they treat their loved ones and their friends. So I'm wondering about if there were some specific examples you saw when you started to have a little bit of aha moments that really unnerved you and stood out to you in terms of the changes that you saw with your family.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, it's something that kind of changes. It's like that phrase of like, it's a slippery slope kind of thing. You're like building a habit when you do and say certain things. And a lot of it is too, I think the internet has been a great thing for communication in society to connect people who are far away, but also it's easier to say and do things online than it is to do it in person to someone's face. I think a lot of hateful things are said online and spread online that shouldn't be. And that was kind of the first few things that I started seeing, like from my dad, that were like, I was like, you're not that kind of person. Why would you say that online when you wouldn't do that in real life? Some of the memes, like I love a good meme. I'm a very online person. I'm a gamer. And I love a good meme, but some of the right camp meme, jokey memes that they made were very gross. Some of the ones about Hillary were really terrible and hateful and mean. And then, they do the same thing about like Nancy Pelosi. Usually it's women, which also doesn't sit right. But it would be these jokey things that were posted on like social media that I was like, you're sharing this with your friends and family, and I'm also on here, and I don't like it. And I think at one point I would speak back every once in a while when it was like very outwardly like homophobic or transphobic, and I would say like, why are you posting this? Like, don't do that. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know. But that was kind of the first indicator. And then got worse during COVID, especially with a lot of the conspiracy theory type stuff. And then January 6th too, even to there were some bad posts made.
So there's this conversation that I feel like is an ongoing one about, and it's particularly pertinent to my own story, which is I tell everyone I was in MAGA from 2015 to 2022. And it was in August of 22 when I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. I cannot support and defend the indefensible any longer. So there is this conversation about, why did it take so long for this to happen? Why didn't Charlottesville do it? Or why didn't COVID do it? Or why didn't January 6th do it? And again, it's not here to defend myself in any way, Megan, but it is something that I really want to stress and emphasize, that people decide to leave when it's the right time for them, because maybe they just hear one lie too many, or there's one avoidable, unnecessary death too many. And it's not that I want to speak for any of our viewers, but I know it comes up a lot in the comments section here about those wondering, well, you've got your dad, and why wasn't COVID enough? Why wasn't January 6th enough? And, maybe you've thought that at times, maybe others, have wondered that, but do you feel like, as you watched over time with your family, and in particular your dad, was there ever this sense, or maybe you have it now, that there's not going to be a way to restore the relationship? Because I think one of the reasons I would imagine wanting to do this testimonial is you don't want that to be the case, right? You don't want there to be a hopelessness or a despair. You want to try to rekindle as much as possible the relationship that you had before 2015 and 16, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think there is hope there. Because like I said, it's my family, like they're very smart, they're very caring, and this could happen to anyone. And that's what a lot of times I try to tell people is, like, they're like, well, those people are so stupid. And I'm like, you don't have to be stupid to be drawn into what is essentially a cult. Like, it's like people who study cults know that that's the case, and they know it. And I think there's hope there. I mean, our relationship is pretty stable right now. I mean, when he got further on to posting things about, like, COVID and January 6th, that was the last straw for me. And I, kind of cut him off at that point. And I think that did kind of set a rule there. It's like, you're doing something that's like crossing a line very severely. And I'm going to tell you that because I love you and I care about you. It's not because I'm trying to say I told you so. It's because I love you. And I don't want to see you do this to yourself and to the people around you. And I think that kind of, he stopped posting a lot of those terrible things. I think he's still maybe in that zone of, like, still voting Republican because he's always voted Republican. And I think he did. I don't know for sure because I didn't talk to him about it. I think he still voted for Trump this year. And, if he did that, that really hurts. But I think there's hope there. I think with this new term, there are going to be a lot of things that happen that people can't deny are the fault of Trump's administration. They'll hopefully be able to, if we give them a little grace, because I think that's a big thing too, is not being ready to shove your finger in someone's face and say, I told you so. That doesn't really help us move forward as a country. Like, what would help the most people as possible, to for us to be a loving and accepting community again. And I would love to live in a world where I don't have to pay attention to politics and be relaxed. But, it'll be another 4 years of me being stressed out, so stressed again. And, maybe during these 4 years, we can try to have those conversations and make a difference, like, to help bring people back into reality, you know.
Well, I'm really glad that you said about refraining from "I told you so," because I've been posting that all over my socials recently.
Yeah.
Because to your point, there is a lot that's going to happen in the next 4 years where I do feel like a lot of people who, out of a sincere desire to see the country be a better place,
Hmm.
supported Trump. And I don't want to ever judge anyone for how they voted, but I do think that it's not going to be just disappointment. There are going to be specific happenings and policies where there's going to be that buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
And as that happens, I'm thinking about your dad. I'm thinking about another testimonial we had recently. It's going to be dropping soon with a lady and her best friend of
Yeah.
3 decades. 3 decades. It's like,
Wow.
you're talking about not just these acquaintanceships. We're talking about parents and children and best friends of many, many years.
Yeah.
And I do think it's going to happen where people are just going to say, this isn't exactly what I wanted. And it's easy to say, I told you so. But the question is, what is actually going to be gained saying that to them? Because if our goal is to really empower people to leave MAGA, we want to try to find a reconciliation with their friends and their family.
Hmm.
All the "I told you so" is just going to push them right back in when we're trying to extract them out. And I promise everyone who challenges me a little bit on that, I appreciate that people may respectfully disagree with what I'm saying and what you are saying now, but I would rather that we not have to find that out in
Yeah.
real time, right? I would rather that we not have to go through the "I told you so." When there's doubt and there's remorse, that's an opportunity for us.
Hmm.
We've got an exit ramp. Now, I don't want to volunteer you for this one, Megan, but I'm thinking that you obviously had an impact because your dad stopped posting.
Yeah.
That means something. So just maybe your dad might eventually leave MAGA. That could happen, right? Because you've created an opening. You did that, and you didn't
Yeah.
do it. You didn't do it by name calling or by insults. It's why I really disagree vehemently with so much of the rhetoric about Trump voters, because when one is called the Nazi or the misogynist or the racist, I'm gonna think about your dad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna think about siblings and best friends. Like, that's who I'm gonna think about and of course I know there's bad people in any large group, but the ones we're talking to, your dad is. I don't even need to know your father, just listening to you to know that he's a good man deep down. There is a goodness in him, and that's true, I think, of most people in the MAGA community.
Yeah. And it's also like kind of the concept of like, how do people learn? As I've got a good education background, it's like not everyone learns by being yelled at and told where they made a mistake. Most people don't learn that way. They learn by being given the information and an opportunity to like learn it and grow. Like if you do something wrong, do you want to be the parent that like yells at your kid and like gets mad at them for like bringing food out into a room and then dropping it on the floor? It's like, I think children learn better. I'm not trying to infantilize people, but it's just education wise, it's a, a good parallel to make, um, learning. People learn at every age. And people learn best with positive reinforcement, not being yelled at. Everybody knows a manager at a job you had, or a teacher that was just so mean and cruel about the way that they manage their employees, or you know teach people in a classroom. And do you remember those as good teachers? No. Do you like those teachers? No. Or those managers? No. The best teachers, the best managers, the best way to approach someone trying to help them learn how to leave something like that is someone with a loving approach to it, like an open approach to it, a conversation. And I think too, it's like it takes a lot of courage and strength to admit that you were wrong about something and go back on what you did before. Like, if you wholeheartedly believed something and you realize that you might have been wrong, it's hard to say that. It's really hard. No one likes to admit that they were wrong, and it's difficult. Like, one of my best friends, I used to hate her. I used to hate her. I think it was boy drama or something stupid like that during college. And at some point, we were both just hating on each other so much. And then one of our mutual friends was like, "You guys actually have a lot in common. And I think you would actually really like each other." And we both had to step back. And I stepped back and I said, "Am I wrong for being really hateful to this person? And are they right?" And we both kind of said, "Listen, let's clean the slate. Let's, you know, I know there were some terrible things that happened, but I think we were wrong." And now we've been best friends for over a decade. Like, and it came out of something where we were very hateful. Like, we were wrong though. And it was hard to say that and realize that I did something bad. I did something wrong. I hurt someone, and I had to do a lot of introspection on myself and think to myself, I'm like, am I giving her a fair shot? Am I doing this because of something wrong in my thought process, when really she could be one of the best friends I've ever had, if I gave
Well,
her a
you
chance.
you laid the groundwork for your dad to leave,
Yeah.
and I know that we can't control if and when others decide to, but very
Yeah.
clearly you influenced him, and that tells me that the love is strong, and you're getting married, right? So
Yeah.
you're planning a wedding, so you want your dad to enjoy it, right? Not have
Mhm.
no like
The
meet
weird
the Fockers,
undertones
yeah.
of like
You don't want like a meet the
some
Fockers
drama.
drama, right? You don't want that. And you said before about yelling at the kids. I got two kids, so I'm going to plead the fifth on that. So you have really put in the work. So I want to ask you, just as a closing question here.
Mhm.
Given everything that happened with your family, and in particular with your father, if you had the opportunity to speak one-on-one to the president-elect, I'm curious what you would say to him, and would your comments be grounded in what MAGA and Trump coming on the political scene did to your relationship? I'm wondering, what is it that you would actually say if you had the opportunity to have a conversation with him?
Hmm. I don't know if it would be in relation to my family and people who, you know, are in MAGA. I because I don't know if he really cares that much about how his actions affect everyday people. I really don't think he cares that much. Um, Maybe I would just say, like, you know, maybe feed into like his sense of like patriotism and just say, like, please don't destroy our American institutions. Like, please don't do, you know, Republican presidents in the past have like worked with the systems that we have and the departments that we have. You don't need to get rid of the Department of Education. You don't need to just get rid of you know, basically get rid of the EPA. I don't know exactly what their plans are, but please don't make too many drastic changes because it's going to hurt everyday people, including the people who support you. Like, please don't do all the tariff stuff. Like, it's going to hurt people a lot, everyday people. Um, and, you know, I don't know. I feel like that would really be the only thing I'd have to say because hopefully it could tone something down, but I don't think he would care about my opinion, sadly. Um, I don't know.
I've thought about often what I might say, and I probably would preface a conversation with him by saying that I was a true
You were
believing,
you were a
devoted,
supporter.
You know, I worked on the campaign. I was a volunteer. I wrote part of the
Yeah.
call script. I made phone calls, did all of the grassroots work.
Yeah.
But I would also say to him that, and I take full responsibility for this, that I helped him tear asunder families and friendships and communities, households, places of worship. And,
Yeah.
you know, what has happened with you and your dad, I feel like I am a culprit in that story, you know, that I have some culpability. And people will say, well, you're only one guy, one vote, one person. But honestly, Megan, that doesn't register with me that way. You know, I did assist him in pitting complete strangers and families against each other. And it's one of the reasons we do these videos. It's one of the reasons we have our organization, is that I'm trying to bring good news to the MAGA afflicted. And what you're doing that I think is really so important as well. And it's why I feel like people are going to really be moved by this video that you're doing, is that it requires such a superhuman degree of patience to have to just have a relationship with those who are our loved ones or our friends who are still in the thrall of MAGA, because I try to separate the people in the community. The community is a toxic one, and a lot of people have just been subsumed into it. So I appreciate that you would say that about, you know, you'd want to be candid with the president-elect. I'd want to be, but our experiences are different, and I can appreciate that. So tell us real quick, when's the big day?
Oh, it's in about a year, so it's like the 8th
All
of
right.
November next year.
All right.
So I've got plenty of time.
Okay, you have plenty of time and plenty of time to figure out who we invite into this, right?
I know.
That's
We're
gotta be
keeping
like
it small.
Yeah, that's what my wife and I did. It's a good idea. I really, Megan, you know, thank you. Congratulations in advance.
Thank you.
And I want to, again, just express our gratitude for you coming on. I know that your story is going to resonate with so many, and you are bringing a hopefulness to this. I think there are a lot of people out there who feel the despair. They feel the desperation about whether they're going to ever be able to get their relationships back of their friends and family. And you are showing that it is possible with the process of doing this. So you are really providing something that I just think a lot of people are looking for right now, especially after this election, which is a reason to believe. So Megan Seivert from Pennsylvania, thank you so much for being with us today. Leaving MAGA MeidasTouch. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our updates with Leaving MAGA and MeidasTouch Network. And if you've left MAGA or you're having doubts about being in MAGA, or you've got friends or family who are still in the MAGA community, we want to hear from you, and we want to hear your story and your testimonial. So be sure to visit us at leavingmaga.org. Get in touch. We appreciate you guys as always watching. Until next time, thanks again.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.